Both the government and the private sector have done a lot to improve cybersecurity, and our collective security is better, but it's still not good enough. Our federal partners are stepping up their efforts with the private sector, but sharing of what they have remains uneven. I think the private sector needs to up its game on cybersecurity and not just wait for the government to provide perfect warning or a magic solution.
The biggest frustration to me is speed, speed, speed. We have got to get faster. We've got to be more agile. We can't be bound by history and tradition here, so to speak. We have to be willing to look at alternatives.
That was top intelligence officials talking about the challenge of addressing foreign cyber attacks on the United States during hearings on the Hill this past week. This as they release a new report describing a, quote, multifaceted campaign by Russian hackers to disrupt our presidential election. Joining me right now is Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, a member of the Armed Services and Judiciary Committees, also at that hearing last week. Senator, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
First question, how long has Russia been hacking the United States?
Oh, for years. Really, the advent of the Internet, for all the good that it's brought, has allowed penetration opportunities that nations are taking advantage of. So this is not new. This has been going on for years. We have a number of instances that we've been briefed on, and the presences are increasing. 30 nations now have some level of cyber attack capabilities across the globe. It's a real threat, and we need to focus on that.
You know, I remember years ago, an insider from the Hank Paulson Treasury told me that Treasury staffers were not allowed to take their BlackBerries or their iPhones to Russia when they did a trip to Russia, because as soon as you enter airspace, Russian airspace, they have access to everything, all of our information. And so if this has been going on for so many years, how come we're talking about it right now so much? How come all of a sudden we've gotten religion on this?
Well, I think that the hacking of the DNC websites, to the extent Russia played a role in that, has just caused everybody to have their attention on that. I will tell you, though, when we travel internationally and we tell all U.S. citizens, any country you go to, understand you're probably going to get hacked or there's going to be an attempt. Not just a nation like Russia, but anywhere you may travel to what we consider to be friendly nations. But I do think the hacking and the election last year had a positive effect to really educate the American people that this is a pervasive threat, both in the public and private sector.
So it's not just Russia, it's also China, it's others. Senator, what specifically do they want? What are they looking for from the U.S.? What are they trying to get in all of this hacking?
Well, Maria, it's similar to the presences, the covert operations that most nations have in other countries. They're out there, they're listening, they're looking, and potentially being positioned to take advantage of an opportunity. Incidentally, the United States is out, has these presences as well, and we need to. So some of it can just be trying to find patterns no different than human intelligence would on the battlefield or in foreign nations, where we're trying to understand and predict where another country maybe that has malintent is headed and try to head them off.
So now the question is, what do we do about it? What is your recommendation? What should the U.S. be doing now that we know what we know? And by the way, what we knew 5 years ago.
Well, I think in the intro to this segment, Director Clapper and Admiral Rogers got it right. First, we have to recognize the private sector needs to step up. They can't wait for the government to protect them. They're on the Internet. They're taking advantage of it. They also have to make sure that the customer information, their systems are secure. Admiral Rogers made a very good point. You know, in the old days, weapon systems would take a decade or more before you can fill them. Weapon systems in the cyberspace can take 24 hours before you have a new threat that you have to be prepared to react to. We've got to make sure that we give our cyber command the tools that they need to be agile and responsive to these threats. We're better prepared to do it than any other nation, but the gap is closing, particularly with nations like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So
why haven't we done it already, Senator?
Well, we have, but the difference here, and I was explaining this in the Senate Armed Services Committee, in the past, you would see a major threat in the form of a new ship or a new missile or a new plane, and you would design defensive measures to deal with that threat. But the nature of the threat literally changes in 24-hour cycles. You never know when an update to an operating system or an app on the Internet isn't providing some sort of presence or back door that allows someone with malicious intent to leverage it. So it's a very different threat than we've ever, and congressmen need to understand that, so that when we talk about defensive measures, we're not necessarily talking about a war in cyberspace. We are talking about sanctions and other actions that we can take for there to be a consequence when we got a smoking gun. Yeah, I see. Senator, it's good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for the information. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Senator Thom Tillis there. Repealing Obamacare, high on the GOP agenda. The work is beginning there right now. Could their efforts be stymied by the lack of a replacement plan? Up next, Majority Whip Steve Scalise on what's next for health care. We're looking ahead right now on Sunday Morning Futures.